Team conflict. Team conflict, how to make it productive. For those of us that have always had a little team interaction, that today we're going to learn a little bit about how to make that conflict a little more productive with Lorna Kibbe. My name is Brett Augustine. I'm a recovery business advisor for North Central Texas Small Business Development Centers. We are a leading provider for assistance for small businesses. We're grant funded, which allows us to offer these services at no cost to you. Team conflict, how to make it productive, presented by Lorna Kibbe. As I was stating earlier, if you don't know Ms. Kibbe, she comes to us as an ASBDC conference speaker for many years. She has 10 years experience working with us and in the Florida Gulf Coast University area, as well as we consider her, and she is a leadership expert. And so we're really happy to have her today. If you have any questions along the way, put them in the chat room so that we can take care of those questions, and we'll be happy to answer them as we go or when Lorna's ready. And at the same time, I would like to turn this over to the one and only Miss Lorna Kibbe.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Glad to see you today, here to talk about working on teams. And today's session is a big topic: conflict, how to make it productive. Conflict is uncomfortable. We don't love conflict, but the truth is that productive teams are very good with conflict, the right kind of conflict. So today we're going to talk about how to have those heated debates and come up with answers and decisions that are good for the team without everybody being alienated and upset and all that goes into unproductive conflict. I'm going to start with a little quiz because I thought you might enjoy this. Here we go. This is a true and false. So you can answer for yourself and we'll see where you are with this whole conflict thing. The most successful teams have very little conflict. True or false? And the answer is, that's false. The most successful teams have conflict. Have you ever sat in a team meeting where there's a discussion going on and nobody is saying anything at all? You know, there's a decision to be made or there's a topic on the table and it's just very quiet. That should scare you because it's not likely that everyone agrees. It's not likely that no one has questions. So that silence sometimes is an indicator to us that we should probably back up and see what's going on. So in fact, really successful teams have open debates on issues all the time. How about this one? The best teams are made up of people who are comfortable passionately arguing for their ideas. Bet you got that one. That's true. Absolutely. We want people to be able to passionately argue for their ideas. We want them to be comfortable with it. You know, we've been doing a series on teams. And one of the things that we talked about in one of the previous sessions was that whole base of trust. It's so important that we establish trust on a team. And when we have established trust, then we can have people who feel comfortable arguing their ideas. We know that not everybody's going to win. Not everybody can, but we're comfortable with it. We'll talk more about that. No matter what their cultural background and family norms, people generally feel the same way about conflict. I am not sharing my screen, am I?
Actually, no, I was going to say, would you like to
I just looked down and saw your screen and said, what is going on? There we go. I'm sorry about that. Here we are. Now you can follow me a little easier.
Perfect.
Were you guys giving me signals and I didn't even see them? Probably.
You were on a roll. We didn't want to stop you.
Okay, thank you. We got it now. No matter what their cultural background and family norms, people generally feel the same way about conflict. They prefer to avoid it. So what do you think? Is that true or false? Most people prefer to avoid conflict? Well, believe it or not, that's actually false. Some people like conflict. Some people live for conflict. Some people want nothing more to have a good argument with you about anything. Do you have a teenager? My daughter's like this. She likes to argue. I found this paper from when she was in third grade where she wrote to her teacher. They were asking, what should you be when you grow up? And she said she wanted to be like a rock star, but her mom says she should be an attorney because she can argue so well. Some people really, really enjoy arguing. They enjoy conflict. So not everybody tries to avoid it. Some people try to instigate it. And the last one, understanding team members' differing experiences with and feelings about conflict helps a team engage in unfiltered, productive debate. And the answer there, I bet you got it. That one's true. Of course, that's what we're going for. There are a lot of myths that are surrounding conflict. Some people say conflict is nothing but bad, but that's not true at all. When it's constructive, it's really an opportunity for positive change. Teamwork means sitting around together in harmony, singing kumbaya. Well, I wish. But that's not really what teamwork is about either. It means moving together forward in projects and turning differences into strengths and solving problems and helping an organization to effectively meet its goals. Some people think that conflict just really squashes creativity. In fact, the opposite is true. When there's conflict, we get more creative with our solutions, more creative with our ideas. It actually forces creativity instead of squashes it. The truth is that productive conflict is required for a team to grow. Productive conflict is required for a team to grow. The value of teams, Ken Blanchard said it all. I think this says it best. None of us is as smart as all of us. And sometimes, we have people who question, are teams really valuable? And we've talked about this a little bit in some of our other sessions, but just to reiterate, teams help us to produce more work. Teams come up with better solutions and ideas. Teams give us that social connection that we need. We need teams. We have much better ideas with a team than we do as individuals. Teams are very valuable to us. Just look at the definition of a team. And you've seen this before, but just to make sure, 2 or more people who come together for a common purpose and are mutually accountable for results. We have to stop every time and think about the definition of a team because that says a lot about conflict. 2 or more people who come together for a common purpose and who are mutually accountable for results. If we have a common purpose and we're going to be mutually accountable, then I need an opportunity to express my opinion. I need an opportunity to openly debate. So that actually is kind of ingrained in the definition itself. Now, there are a lot of studies and of teams and team conflict, and I just thought I'd talk about a couple of them because you've probably heard some of this before, but I just want to point out to you that there's something core in these studies that keeps coming up over and over. This one is the characteristics of high-performing teams, according to Ken Blanchard. He wrote a book called The 1 Minute Manager Builds High-Performing Teams. You got to love a good Ken Blanchard book. It's short and sweet. You can read it over a mocha at Barnes and Nobles. It's great. Always comes right to the point. Great book. And this is what he says we need. Oh, and notice how he made a little acronym out of it. Isn't that cute? The acronym spells perform. He says we have to have purpose and value. Team has to know what their purpose is and that they have value. Empowerment. They have to be empowered to do the task to which they're supposed to do, right? They have to have some level of authority. And number 3 is relationships and communication. Relationships and communication. That's where conflict comes in. Flexibility, optimal performance, recognition and appreciation, and morale. And all of these other things are being covered in the series as we go. Relationships and communication. Different ideas and opinions are welcome. Team members practice active listening. That's by Ken Blanchard. Okay, cool. Some of you may have heard of this one. Stages of Team Growth by Dr. Bruce Tuckman. This is very interesting. His original theory talked about 4 stages of team growth. It starts out with forming. We're getting to know each other. We form the team. How are you? Who are you? What do you do? We start to build that trust and respect. And look, the second thing that happens is storming. The second stage, boom, storming. That's when we start to realize what we got ourselves into and have a little panic attack, right? And then he goes to norming, where we start to perform together as a team, finally performing, where we gel, and now we're getting somewhere. And then a 5th stage, which he added like in the 60s after he had done this original theory, which is adjourning, because he recognized that at some point somebody leaves the team, and that really puts the team back into another stage while they go through that adjustment. So we know that those stages go back and forth. Storming though, storming. Members get to know each other. Often team members compete for status and argue as personalities begin to emerge. The major job is to work through frustrations and focus on goal. My point is that almost every model that you look at has some component about this conflict thing. How about this one? Have you heard of Thomas Kilmann and his conflict notes? This is an assessment that you can use. Some of you have probably done this. And he shows us, on the axis of assertive and cooperativeness, tries to talk to us about which is the best way. He says we all have a natural style when it comes to conflict, and we score ourselves to find out where we belong. And people end up in compromising and they feel really good because I'm a compromiser. And then he hits us, bam, compromising is not the best one because when you compromise, somebody loses. The best one is collaborating. When we have collaboration, that's really the best mode of conflict that we can hope for. And then, of course, there's the 5 behaviors of a team, which we've been talking about in this series. And as I've said before, I'm an authorized facilitator. I'm licensed to do this. I'm an authorized partner with the 5 behaviors of a team. So no copyright violations or anything like that. This is all licensed content. And with this one, we start with that base of trust. And look what's next. Conflict. There it is again. And with this pyramid model, we're saying first you have to trust, you have to have conflict before you can go any higher, kind of like Maslow's old theory of motivation. It's like it all starts with trust. You have to build on trust. Only when you trust can you have productive conflict. And only when you have productive conflict can you get all your team members to commit to the same thing and go in the same direction. And only when everybody's going in the same direction because they trust, they've all given their ideas and they all buy in, can you have peer accountability, which in the end gives us the results that we're looking for. So all of the models have this conflict thing in them somewhere. I'm going to show you just a quick video, and this is Patrick Lencioni, the author of the 5 Behaviors of a Team, where he gives us the definition of conflict according to Patrick Lencioni, because it's a little bit different than some people would think. So just a brief video here for you.
You see, when we build trust on a team, it allows us to embrace the next thing that we have to do. And that is we have to really understand and benefit from conflict. Conflict is a second discipline or behavior that we have to embrace. Conflict on a team is a good thing. Okay. Now it looks different from culture to culture and company to company and family to family and disc profile to disc profile. And that's okay. The key is this: we're not talking about negative interpersonal conflict, mean spirit. We're talking about productive ideological conflict around issues. That's a good thing on a team. What matters is this: that that nobody is holding back their opinions, that people are not afraid to speak up. They're not calculating the cost, weighing the political ramifications. They are, if something is worth disagreeing about, they will disagree and they will tell one another. That's what we're looking for, that kind of conflict. Now, I said it's not supposed to be personal and it's not supposed to be negative, but it's going to be uncomfortable. That's why I call it conflict. Some people say, well, can't you just call it discussion? The truth of the matter is, when human beings disagree, it's a little uncomfortable, and we have to embrace that, which is why we talk about trust first. Because if we trust one another, and we have to start there, and we have true vulnerability-based trust, then there's no fear. Because I know that if I disagree with you, you know that I'm not trying to hurt you. I'll admit if you convince me otherwise, so I can engage in this conflict without fear. But if there's no trust, if there's no vulnerability-based trust, then conflict becomes manipulation and politics. With trust, conflict is nothing but the pursuit of truth or the best possible answer. What a great thing that is. And that's why we need to embrace conflict on our team.
Okay, so that's Patrick Lencioni defining conflict and why it's so important. And, I love what he says, that it is uncomfortable. And people say to him, why not just call it debate? He calls it conflict because he wants us to know that it is uncomfortable, that it's going to be uncomfortable. According to Lencioni, debate that is focused on concepts and ideas and avoids mean-spirited personal attacks. How do we get that? How do we avoid mean-spirited personal attacks? You see, a team that fears conflict has boring meetings. Their meetings are boring because everybody is going along with it and not saying much. They just want the meeting to be done. They ignore controversial topics that are really critical to their success. They fail to tap into all opinions and perspectives of team members. They're perfectly happy with you sitting there and being quiet and not saying anything. They waste time and energy with interpersonal issues. And the truth is that just one person on your team who feels they can't participate, who can't speak out, can erode the trust for the entire team, which can destroy your possibility of achieving the results that you want. A team that engages in conflict, they have lively team meetings. They're all giving their opinions. It's craziness, you know. The best team meeting I've ever been to is when I couldn't even tell who the leader of the team was because they were having such debate and open discussion, and it was exciting. The thing you have to be careful about, though, is some team leaders are not comfortable with conflict. And when that happens, they'll try to shut it down, you know, because, oh my gosh, they're getting into an argument. We have to understand when to enjoy that, when it's productive and when it's not. And I'm going to give you some help with that today. We use the ideas of all team members. We solve our problems quickly, minimize the politics, and we have this open discussion on critical topics. And that's the best we can hope for on a team. So here's a quick quiz for you. Actually, conflict in teams is a sign of health because A, it's good to take that anger out somewhere. B, it means that team members feel it's safe to disagree and fully discuss issues they trust. C, when there's no conflict, there's no reason to have fun team meetings. And D, it's the best way to keep things exciting for everyone. Hopefully, you agree that it's B. It means that team members feel safe to disagree and discuss issues and they trust. And you can see that this is going to make a difference for us in making decisions, because if everyone's been able to voice their opinion, if everyone's been able to give their thoughts and they feel like it's valued, they're going to have a much easier time with a team decision that's not exactly aligned with what they thought we should do. Right? So it's really going to help to get commitment from everyone on the team. They're going to be able to move in the same direction. Let's talk about healthy conflict versus unhealthy conflict, because there really is a difference. And recognizing the difference is so important for a team leader. We want conflict, but we want it to be productive, healthy conflict. Sometimes it's mean-spirited. Sometimes it's not good conflict. So I made a list for you just to give you a few ideas on this. So unhealthy, finger pointing. You know, you've seen that person who starts getting in your face. That is not healthy. Insults, you know, if people are throwing insults at each other, that's unhealthy. Ultimatums, if you don't do it my way, then defensiveness. People start getting defensive. It's probably time to take a break. Sometimes people will shut down. If you're familiar with the whole idea of personality styles, you know that we have an entire segment in our personality profiles of people who have a tendency to sit back and be quiet and just listen. We have to be really careful as team leaders to pull those people out and get their opinions and not let them get away with just sitting there and saying nothing. We have to include everybody in that team. Other things are threats. If you start hearing threats, if you have avoidance, people are avoiding the discussion or avoiding issues, that's not healthy. Something that's disrupting your progress, and you see that, you know, the thing to do is whenever you see that kind of thing, just take a break. Sometimes you'll see, you'll have facts right in front of you and people are just disregarding them, and you have to bring them back around and bring them back to those facts so that you can have really bold discussions about what's going on. So those are some of the signs of unhealthy conflict. Healthy conflict: clear, honest communication, active listening. Here's a secret for you. Not everybody knows how to do these things. Sometimes you have to teach your employees how to do active listening. Sometimes they need a workshop on it. They don't understand what that means. No assumptions, ask outright. Questioning, debate, respect, different points of view and ideas welcome. One thing that you have to do as a team to really go for that healthy conflict, I think, is sometimes have hard discussions about what these things mean. What's respect look like? How does it work when we have questions and debate? What's our ground rules? Is it okay to use 4-letter words in our meetings? When you get out of hand, if somebody lets one go, or is that like destructive, or can we let it go? I mean, just to have these honest, open discussions with the team about what this means and what this looks like and what you're expecting. You make these things normal, like we're always going to ask every single person's opinion, whether you say anything or not. They'll get used to it. It'll become the norm. It'll become healthy instead of something that's really scary sometimes for people. Lin Chung talks about this conflict continuum in his book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And that book he's now converted to The 5 Behaviors of a Cohesive Team and working with Wiley. I wanted to show you what this conflict continuum is. This is the last video. It's a short one, but I want you to understand when things start to go wrong, when you start to cross the line. And so this is really brief, but I think this will help you to understand what I'm talking about with healthy versus unhealthy conflict.
When it comes to conflict, there's this thing called the conflict continuum I like to use. I made up this simple construct. The conflict continuum is this. At one end is artificial harmony. This is where people on a team never engage in conflict. They're always nice to one another, even though they don't really feel like it, but that's what they do. At the other end is what I call really awful, ugly, mean-spirited conflict. People are at each other's throats. Okay, so if this is the continuum, if you move down the continuum, you go a little more constructive conflict, a little more constructive conflict, a little more, a little more, a little more. And at some point, it goes from constructive to destructive. Then a little more destructive, a little more until hell comes, right? And so most teams I work with live out here, close to artificial harmony. Like, oh, we don't want to have it. And it's because they think every time they move in this direction, it's one step closer to hell. Where in fact, the best place to be for a team is right here, where you're having all the constructive conflict possible and not stepping over the line. But we have to have the courage to go there. Well, why don't we want to go there? Because we're just afraid it's going to step over the line. And you know something? It is. The greatest teams in the world occasionally are going to step over the line. And when they do that, it's a moment of truth. It's an opportunity for them to recover from it, be vulnerable around it, and realize that they can survive that. And it gives them the courage to live right here. Teams that don't think that they can overcome that will stay way over here and never benefit from all of this wonderful constructive conflict. So we have to have the courage to go right up to that line and know that when we do step over it, we can recover. And when you recover from that, you build stronger teams. We know this in all of our personal relationships. When you recover from something like that, it only makes your team and your relationship stronger.
I like that. And this is a picture of the continuum. You have your ideal conflict point, and you can be heading in either way. I like to just refer to this artificial harmony he's talking about, because to me, that's where I struggle a lot of times with managers that I'm trying to help, because let's face it, we like harmony. We all want a harmonious work environment. And when something threatens that, it's hard for us to handle sometimes as leaders. We don't always address problems as quickly as we should. We feel like it'll work itself out. We don't really want to go there. You see team meetings where it just looks like everybody's having a great time, and nothing could be further from the truth. But on the surface, it looks like everybody's having a good time and we're all harmonious. Watch out for that. Watch out for that. And then recognizing when you go past that ideal conflict point, and you go one step beyond it, red flag. You go 2 steps beyond it, stop. At a point, there's a point when you have to stop. I think, again, educating your team about this so that we all understand where that line is. If we can have some agreement about when are we crossing the line, to the point where people are willing to say, whoa, we're crossing the line, and you can bring it back, that's very helpful. And in that circumstance, always just take a break and bring it back, and that really helps a lot. Remember, we have this whole limbic brain where we get a little crazy sometimes when we get angry and emotional. And this is a part of emotional intelligence as well, giving everybody a minute to let that adrenaline settle and come back and talk about it again. So I think that's a really good way for us to think about conflict and know that artificial harmony is not good. And neither is the really awful, ugly, mean-spirited attacks. We don't want to go too far in either direction. We're looking for some kind of ideal conflict point, if that could possibly exist. The better able team members are to engage, speak, listen, hear, interpret, and respond constructively, the more likely their teams are to leverage conflict rather than be leveled by it. That's a good one. Okay, so what are the causes of conflict on teams? Why do we have conflict? And of course, these are just a few of the reasons, but many times it starts with the team leader. The purpose isn't clear. I struggled with a team that I was pretty excited about. I understood exactly what we were supposed to do, and I was excited to get with this team. I had great people. But what I didn't understand was that the scope of the purpose was so big that nobody knew what to do. It was not clear exactly what we were supposed to be doing. The scope was huge. It's like, we're going to save the world. Yay. And we're all excited. We're going to save the world. But no, we hadn't taken time to really narrow that purpose so that we knew exactly what we were working on at this point in time. Let's just work on one problem before we work on the next. And that becomes a big source of conflict because we're not really sure. And many times we have team members who are working very hard on wrong things or in the wrong direction because we didn't take time to really clarify what we're doing. Undefined goals. We have to define those goals and expectations. People need to understand exactly what we're striving for. And on a team, those short-term goals are really important because we want to achieve them and celebrate and then work on the next thing, right? Keep that team motivated. Organizational norms. We just don't do that here. It's not okay to speak up here. You're supposed to be quiet here. It's not okay to argue. We just don't do that. We want everybody to get along. So sometimes those norms, those unwritten rules actually get in your way, which is why I keep emphasizing having these conversations with your teams to help them to agree on what is productive conflict and how to define that. Self-interest. Yeah, that's common. Many people don't have the emotional intelligence to get that self-regulation. And it becomes a matter of you're threatening me, you're threatening my work, you're threatening my project. So we have to watch out for that. And lack of trust, which we've talked about before and we'll continue to talk about because it's huge, but there's other things too. Like sometimes the seriousness of the outcomes just seems so intense that we can't even process it. And that's when it's important for us to break it down and that will cause conflict. I see this in healthcare systems. Especially like with COVID, we saw that a lot. That was a big source of conflict because the outcomes were so serious and nobody knew what to do. And we went in circles in a lot of teams. Sometimes the absence of a collective focus, like we're not all focused on the same thing, which kind of goes back to our purpose not being clear. We sometimes see people who don't want to be held accountable. That can cause conflict on teams. So there's just all kinds of things that can get in your way. One of the biggest things that we can do to help ourselves, though, is right here, this trust thing. Confidence among team members that their peers' intentions are good and that there's no reason to be protective or careful around the group. That's tough. It's a tough thing to accomplish, but we have to start with trust. We have to really believe that everybody's trying to do right things and that I can be vulnerable with this group, that I can say, I messed this up and I need some help fixing it. And people don't attack me, that we're all in this together. Or to be able to say, I know we need this by Friday. Honestly, I don't know how to do it. I don't think I can make it. Can you help me? Those kind of things are really important when we're talking about trust and our ability to manage conflict on our team. I wonder if you've heard of these things, because this happens a lot of time and causes some conflict on team. Have you heard about groupthink and the Abilene paradox? You've probably heard about groupthink. I don't know about the Abilene paradox, but groupthink is failure to manage disagreement. If you ever watch a video about the whole Challenger disaster, that is a really classic example of groupthink, where there were people in the group who knew that that space shuttle should not launch because of the problem that they knew was there. And the group talked them into going along with the decision. It was like they didn't feel comfortable disagreeing. They didn't feel comfortable pushing that conflict. And as a result, well, you know what happened next. So groupthink is something to really watch out for and do some study on if you're not really familiar with that and how to combat that, because there are definite steps that you can take to combat it. This one, the Abilene paradox, it kind of makes me laugh every time I think about it, because I try so hard not to live this way and it happens so often. The Abilene paradox is actually the failure to manage agreement. And, actually, I've talked about this so much that my daughter will even say to me, "Hey, Mom, are we on the road to Abilene right now?" So let me tell you the story of Abilene. Okay. So there's this hokey video, and I don't even know how old it is right now, but I've seen it a million times because it just cracks me up every time. And it reminds me of this, of watching out for this. It's in Texas, Abilene, Texas, right? And there's a mom and dad and the kids, who are married daughter and son-in-law. They're all on this porch in Abilene, and it's hot. It's Texas. Oh my gosh, they're so hot. They're gonna die. It's so hot. And the dad figure, grandpa, yes, he says, "What do y'all say we get in the car and we go to town and have dinner at the diner?" And grandma says, "Well, we have stuff in the icebox, but we don't want to eat that stuff, do we?" And so the son-in-law says, "Dad, did you get that old Buick fixed? Did you get the AC fixed?" And Dad says, "Well, no." "Well, how many miles is it to Abilene?" "About 50. "Oh, sure, that sounds great." And they're exchanging looks like, "Oh no, we're gonna do this." So they all get in the car, and there's this hokey music. They drive, and the dust is blowing in the windows because it's awful. They get to the diner, the meal is awful. It's awful. The whole thing is awful. Finally, they come back. They're sitting on the porch, and they're fanning themselves again. "Well, that was a nice trip." And the grandma says, "To tell you the truth, I never wanted to go, and I didn't enjoy it at all." They're all shocked, like, "But you said you wanted to go." And the grandpa says, "I didn't want to go either, but it was your idea." I mean, nobody would say, "I don't want to." Failure to manage agreement. So they all did something they didn't want to do because they couldn't control their failure to manage agreement. Isn't that crazy? But that happens all the time. It happens on teams. It's like everybody just goes along with it because they think everybody else wants to. And pretty soon we're going down the road making a terrible decision because no one's willing to speak out and say, "Wait a minute." So we got to watch out for these things that can really mess up our teams and result in conflict that's pretty hard to come back from. So what can you do to master conflict? What can you do? Well, I do have some ideas for you. There are some things we can do. We have some control. One thing is just I've been talking about is to really encourage your team members to voice your opinion, even at the risk of causing disagreement. As a matter of fact, it's kind of cool to challenge people, like appoint some people to be the devil's advocate. Give us some challenge here. Make it common practice for team members to ask for the opinions of others during meeting. Just, make it a norm. Like, we're going to ask. I mentioned that before. Require them to deal with difficult issues before moving to another subject. Sometimes it is really difficult. Here's a little mini list for you. Don't avoid it. Don't avoid it. You have to have conflict. If you're not having conflict, you probably have a problem. Just be really open with things. Work on your trust. I told you about trust, how important trust is. Confront and deal with your issues. and look for that common ground. What do we have in common? I've seen some master facilitators, with a team that just was crazy with conflict, just focus on, okay, let's talk about what we've all agreed on. And it might be 2 points, but it just moves that team right into a different direction, because at least they have these 2 things that they agree on. So, here's a big one, giving think time. Some people are more reflective. Some people need time to think things over. And we bring them into meetings like this. We talk about it, we openly debate it, and then we try to force them into agreeing or making a decision right now. It might be better to come back in 2 hours. Give them time to think about it, especially if you have people on your team who have a little trouble with change. When you make decisions, they don't adapt real well to change. If you just give them a little time to think about it and process it, they can come back and give you their opinions and have that buy-in that you need. If you force it we got to have this meeting done in 20 minutes, let's go, we're going to make this decision, and they don't participate, they don't have time to reflect, they don't have time to think about it, you're going to lose them. And what happens when you walk out of the room with people who don't necessarily agree or have time is that, well, all kinds of bad things can happen. Sabotage. They don't participate. They don't understand, so we have to give people think time. We have to think about that. We can't always push this so fast. There are about 50% of our population are reflective, while the other 50% are let's go. So let's think about that 50%, that needs a little more reflection time. Make sure that we give that and own it as a team and resolve it as a team. So again, having these conversations with your team about what does conflict look like? How are we going to handle it? What's acceptable to us? How are we going to deal with this as a team so that they can be more comfortable with it? Consensus. This is what we hope for, at the end of conflict, that we all agree. And so we say, does everybody agree? And people nod their heads and we say, cool. Or, if we really want to be diplomatic, we'll say, let's vote. Everybody agree? Everybody raises their hand and the meeting's over. That's not consensus. Consensus doesn't necessarily mean that everybody agrees. The truth is, it's going to be pretty rare for everybody to agree. So what we're really hoping for is that everyone agrees to support a decision when they leave the room. And honestly, you need to test consensus before you move on. How do you test consensus? I just happen to have a slide on that. First, identify all the options, which means doing that brainstorming and getting everybody's opinions, right? Let everybody talk about it. Build on those common ideas. That'll generate more ideas. Propose alternatives, compromises, and talk about the differences. Don't just let them sit. Identify the best choices, and then you test. And here's how you test. Instead of saying, does everyone agree? And everybody raises their hand like this or nods their head, you say, Thomas, this is the decision that the team has made. This is where we're going. When we walk out of this room today, are you going to be able to support it? And you watch to see what his reaction is. And when you get his reaction, you go to the next person. Candace, this is the decision we've made. Are you going to be able to support this when you leave the room? You're watching for nonverbals. I've had people roll their eyes at me. Great. Thank you for letting me know you got a problem. What is it? Then I can call them and say, okay, I can see that something's not right with this for you. So let's talk through it. Let them talk through it. People understand that they're not always going to get their way, and it's not about always getting my way, but I sure want you to value my opinion. I want to be heard, and I want to know that you value what I think. So give me a chance to express it. And one of 2 things will happen when you do this. Either they'll come up with something that everybody else says, yeah, but this, and what about this? And, there's no other way to do it. And they go, yeah, you're right. Okay, yes, I can support it. Or they'll come up with something that we never even thought of. Thank you. Thank you for doing it now. Because if you don't take time to do this, if you don't get that consensus, so that everybody agrees to support it. Everybody's had their chance to express their opinion. Everybody's had input. When you walk out of the room and the meeting is over, they're going to turn to their coworker and say, Lori, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. I can't even believe they came up with that decision. And there's no way in the world that this is going to work. And I'm sure not going to do it. You ever seen that? It's a very bad thing. But it happens all the time because we don't really take time to let people talk through things, to have that open debate, and then make sure that we check in with each individual to see that they have given us their input and that we've talked through it with them, the reasoning, and understood where everybody's coming from on this thing. That's what we need to do with consensus, because we need to get everybody on the same page going in the same direction. Really important. So here you go. Here's a quick quiz for you. You ready? Let's see how you're doing. It's likely that your team has varied levels of trained individuals with different areas of expertise. Is that true? Most teams do. They have varied levels of expertise and training. For the purposes of conflict resolution, what do you think? This factor may reduce conflict because there are subject area experts available to help pull out facts. It might create conflict because many will not share information willingly. You know how those experts are. It might create conflict because everyone believes they have the right answer. Or do you think it will have no effect? Got your answer? The right answer is this. It might create conflict because everyone thinks they have the right answer. Everybody knows, everybody is an expert in their particular area. And so they think they have the right answer. That's great. Let's talk about it. That's awesome. I would much rather them talk about it. Let's have a conversation around it. And if it is the right answer and we can all get on the same page with that and come to consensus, that's a win for our team. That's a win. So great. If they have the expertise, bring it on. We like it. Yay. All right. As an individual team member, one of the things in the series that I'm trying to make sure I do is not just address our team leaders, but I want people to understand that even if you're a team member and not the leader, you're still a leader. You're still a member of that team and you can still impact the results of the team. So let's talk about an individual team member and what you can do if you're not the leader. Well, the first thing is to speak up, voice your opinion. Don't let them just keep you in the background. You know, you need to be able to speak up. I know that's not easy for everyone. I get that. But this is really important for the team. I get really worried about people who don't speak up because they have such talent and such amazing ideas. And they're here on our team because of their strengths. And then we don't even ask them. So please voice your opinion. Seek out the opinions of your teammates during meetings. Be the one that says, hey, Sherry, what do you think? Help make it easier for them, you know. Listen for understanding. Back to active listening, you know. Take time to really try to understand what their point of view is and what they're saying. Explore everyone's ideas to uncover the best solution. And here's the really hard one, withholding judgment and sticking to facts. Sometimes we let our emotions and thoughts and reactions get in the way of the truth. And we need to stick to the facts and withhold judgment with others. So as a team member, you still have a lot of control, a lot of things that you can do to help your team to really exercise that productive conflict. It's really not the leader's job. It's really the job of every single team member. Sorry for the bad news. Can't just blame your team leader. It's all of us. All right, another quick quiz. Here you go. Avoiding conflict is a guaranteed way to stay out of trouble. Allows others to have control of the situation. It means you will never be blamed. I wish. It keeps people from withdrawing from work teams. And this one, probably guessed it. It allows others to have control. Is that what we really want? Avoiding conflict allows others to have control. You take yourself out of the equation. Not the desired result. All right, so in summary, wait, I have another question. I fooled myself, sorry. When you have to confront someone, the best way to do it is send an email so you can have your say without having to see their reaction. Go talk to a friend so that you can deal with your feelings and not have to face the person. Swallow the whole thing and get over it. Go talk to the person and then listen to what they have to say. And of course, we have to suck it up and go talk to them. Sending the email, it's easier for sure, but email can be so misunderstood. That's not really the right way to handle it. Talking to a friend, that's gossip, and swallowing the whole thing. Well, when you do swallow it, getting over it is nearly impossible because it just forms this little thing in your stomach that starts to hurt and get bigger. You've got to deal with this. So you're going to have to go talk to the person and listen to what they have to say. So effective conflict management involves being present in the moment. And that means through all the things that I've been talking about, you have to be in the middle of the conversation. You have to be there. You can't let your mind wander off and say, I'll come back when they're done arguing. You have to participate in it. Listening for understanding, that mutuality of trying to find the common ground, the openness that will come through your work with your team to try to get everyone to understand how we're going to handle conflict on our team. And reflection, remembering that there are times when people need a little time to think about it. And we have to be willing to give that time. I want to talk about this from one other perspective, and that's virtual. Virtual versus in-person teamwork. Because with everything that we've been going through, it's been a little tough. Some of the hybrid teams and some of the virtual teams, we're finding some really interesting things. And basically it comes down to this though, virtual teams have unique features and challenges, but the underlying principles of teamwork haven't changed. The underlying principles are the same. I find managers who are getting really getting caught up in the fact that we can't do it because it's virtual. I can't do this team stuff. I can't work on trust. We can't have open debates on Zoom. We can't do it. And really that's not true. We are finding some interesting things about trying to debate on Zoom and trying to have these things. One thing that I think is interesting is that in some of the teams that I've been involved with, people who in team meetings, in live team meetings, typically don't say much, all of a sudden find their voice. I think it's because they don't feel threatened by being in a group of people. When they're in their own space, they feel like they can speak up. And on the other hand, people who usually speak maybe too much are not saying as much. I think it's a little harder to facilitate a team through conflict on Zoom because we get impatient that only one person is speaking, and we're used to all kinds of chaos when there's conflict. But that's not really what conflict has to be. And so I see people struggling with that a little bit. So a lot of the strategies are the same, checking in with everyone. People are going to be quiet. We can't all talk at once. So we're going to have to call them out. We're going to have to talk to people and see, ask them one by one, just like we do with consensus. We have to make time for those informal conversations. This is a big mistake that some of us are making with our team meetings, our virtual meetings. We jump right into the business of things. And I get it, but we need to take that few minutes, when we're gathering for a meeting, when we say, hey, how are you? How's it going today? And that water cooler talk that we, just a couple of minutes of hey, how are you? That we don't take time for in our team meetings when we're doing them in a virtual environment. We have to find a way to incorporate that. I've been having great success with spending the first 5 minutes in breakout rooms of 2. I just randomly assign 2 people per room, and I say, just say good morning. This is who I am. and this is how I'm doing, just take a minute. And the better people know each other, the more success I have with that. But even when they don't know each other at all, it turns out really well. It's also a great way if you're having a team meeting to not call anybody out for being late, because what happens is they show up for your breakout group and everybody's gone. Everybody's in their breakout team. Now you know they were late. And you do that to them a few times and they show up on time. It's remarkable. Just a little tactic I've been using. Encourage everybody to keep the video on. That's really important, having your team meetings. It's hard virtual to keep up with what's going on non-verbally, especially if the camera's off. It's rightly impossible. So ask everyone to keep their video on so you can keep an eye on what's going on, and encourage them to use chat. If you can't get an edge in word-wise, throw something in chat and then, have everybody do it. There's other techniques, like I know with Zoom, there's these different things where you can like raise your hand. Tell you the truth, when we're having a team meeting and people are like in heavy discussion, I don't even see those hands go up. Somebody has to tell me, oh, Brett's hand is up. Oh, shoot, I didn't see that. Hi, Brett. So watch out for those kind of things. But the basic rules of teamwork still apply in your virtual teams as well. Might be a little harder to facilitate, but it's still there. It's still there. With that, let me stop for a second, Brett, and see if we have any questions that you need me to answer, and then I'll come back and close.
Absolutely. If anybody does have a question, please go ahead and put it in the chat, or as you saw just recently under reactions, you can do this and raise your hand, and we'll be happy to get to it. Or if you're comfortable, you can just unmute and ask Lorna. She's really good with that. In the meantime, I'd like to go ahead and put something in the chat, if I may. You asked about this earlier for other Lorna Kibbe wonderful tidbits that we have with her training and development in the past. It is right there in the chat room, our YouTube channel. You can go right there and find that for her. So we're happy to go back in time for anything that you've missed, because she really does have some amazing stuff. So with that said, anybody have any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Let me find my video here. Going back to consensus, that it would be a beautiful thing. It really would, if we could get everybody to agree, link arms and sing Kumbaya. But since that's seldom going to happen, at what point in that, here's what we're going to do, can you support it? At what point do you just say, agree to disagree, this is the way we're going to do it, and then let them be angry?
There's a time when a leader has to make a decision. There's no question. There's a time when, you listen to all the input and then you say, this is how it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's the case. I would just ask that before you go there, that you make sure that you have listened to the input, that everybody's had a chance to express their opinion, and that there's just no question that what they're bringing up is not relevant, or it's not going to help us. It's not going to move us forward. And at that point, when you've heard everybody's input, and, even if somebody leaves saying they can't agree with it, and you say, okay, after listening to everybody's input, I think this is the best solution. This is what we're going to do. I know you don't agree, John, and, let's work together to try to make this work for you. But this is the direction the team's going to go. Sometimes you have to do that. You're absolutely right. Yeah. But what's really good about that? At least you know that you have somebody out there who's not with you. Isn't that valuable? Because how many times do we get sideswacked because we didn't know?
Yeah.
So I would much rather just know, up front, that I got a problem here, instead of it hitting me in the face in some other way down the road. And boy, has anybody had that happen? I've had it happen, like where I thought everybody was with me and we got in some meeting and I was embarrassed to death because I had no idea that they were never on board with this. So I'm like, tell me if you don't like it. That's cool. I'd rather know now. As long as I've listened to their reasons.
Absolutely. Anybody else have any questions they'd like to give Lorna right now?
Actually, if you let, I have one question. The question is like this. everything what you have explained for us today. Can I think as a team between shareholders of the company? And we meet not so often, in the shareholders meeting. And you recommend to use the same rules when we talk? We are a team, or we just thinking about own profits during the meeting?
The sound is pulsing in and out. Brett, can you repeat that for me?
Yeah, I think I can.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead, Thomas, if you want to try again.
No, if you can explain.
I thought,
It's just kind of pulsing in and out. I'm not sure if it's me.
Yeah. If I get this right, he was talking about shareholders meetings where they mostly focused on revenue and money, of course, and profits. He wants to know, can you still apply these rules to the shareholders meetings like that when maybe they're not as interested, but can you?
Oh, I love this question.
Yeah, right.
That's what I thought you were saying, but I was like, this is too good to be true. Can this really be the question? That's a good question. The answer is absolutely. We want a team here. We want people to be all with us, to be moving in the best direction and to making the best decisions for the organization. And they're a part of that, right? We want everybody going in the same direction. So absolutely, this is great for that. It might be a little harder, but it's possible. And what I find is most people, when you start talking about this kind of thing and really working with them to build a team of this type, it takes work. Sometimes it's really ugly in the beginning, but boy, it's always a great thing in the end.
That was a great question. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else?
Thank you for questions.
Love it.
Okay. Last little thing I want to just close at least this part of the questions with is coming back to a meeting, saying walk away for a couple hours, maybe go have lunch, come back to your meeting to wrap it up. I think that's probably one of the best things I've ever heard, because a lot of times we're pressured in upper management to get decisions made because time is money, right? And get things done. But the real truth is, after you've had everybody's input and you've given them time to really voice their opinions, then giving them that break to come back and say, go think about everything everybody else said too.
Yeah.
I think that's really gold. And thank you so much for sharing that. I wrote that down. I'm taking that and putting it with me forever.
It saves time in the end, Brett, because how many times do we do this? And then we walk out and, an hour later we go, ooh, I forgot about this, and give me a little time to think about that and process it so that we can come back and really even make better decisions. So
absolutely. Well, back to you.
Okay, great. I love you guys' questions. So good. Thank you so much. All right, here's your final quiz. Are you ready? We'll see if you have it. Here we go. Behavior that will reduce conflict in your workplace includes disguising your own needs and goals, keeping to yourself, denying that conflict exists. And of course, we know the answer is this: understanding the needs of coworkers. That's what it's all about. Understanding the needs of coworkers. I think it's just an amazingly great service that SBDC is providing to us in North Central Texas for these sessions. This teamwork series is really in depth. And as Brett said, he already gave you the connection for the other sessions we've done on teams. They're all recorded for you. We've had 3 so far, and today is 4. And here are the rest of the sessions. So maybe your next step is to put these dates on your calendar. Next time, we're going to talk about how to get decisions right. Then we're going to talk about team building activities that you can use with your team. Won't that be fun? And finally, leading a team in a virtual world. So I appreciate y'all being here with me today, and I hope this is helpful to you. Loved your questions, and thank you for those of you that were on camera. I love that. Thank you so much. It's great to see you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Lorna. I appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and share a little bit more of some upcoming things, if I may. On January the 31st, what to consider when choosing a business structure with Angela Robinson. And as well, on the February the 1st, we have a double hitter coming up with Stacy Stacy Kendall and Rebecca Schultz. Stacy's going to be talking about an intro to QuickBooks Part 2. If you haven't had Part 1, please use what I put in the link. Go back, take Part 1 first, and then come back for Part 2. That is really great for those of you who use QuickBooks. These people are absolutely professionals in what they do. And using government debt strategically with Rebecca Schultz. Those of you that know her know she knows numbers really well, and she also is really good with those connections. So it's going to be a really good one. On the 3rd, we have Marketing Your Business from the Driver's Seat with Melissa Forciat. She was with us this morning too. You can always go back and see some of the ones there. And then one of my personal favorites coming up on February 3rd, you just saw her a moment ago. In fact, she's still online. Miss Lorna Kibbe coming up with Team Decisions, how to get them right. So there's just a taste of all the wonderful things coming at you for our training and development series. Go online. If you have the QR code up at the top, you can go there and sign up for future courses as well. We're happy to follow up. In fact, after every one of these, you get a survey. Please take 2 minutes to just fill it out for us so we know we're providing good training and quality training for those of you who are out there as entrepreneurs or business owners or people that are working in business, just trying to make it better, because that's what we're here for. And if you ever decide you need to meet with somebody face-to-face, we have business advisors ready to go. Just go online to our website with the sbdc.nctc.edu to make an appointment. We're happy to do so. We have a lot of different things coming up as well. And we want to thank the Small Business Administration, the state of Texas, North Texas SBDC Regional Office, and North Central Texas College for making all of this possible. We really appreciate that. We thank all of you for your questions again today. Love to see all the faces. Lorna, thank you so much for everything. And for those of you who don't know, she's got a great book. Yes, ma'am. Do I see a hand up?
Lorna has her hand raised.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't see it. You're right. Please go ahead. Lorna, you have a question?
I'm not sure what went wrong, but I'm trying to get the link because I see a couple of these I want to go back and watch, and it says something went wrong and it won't let me in. I tried it twice. Could you maybe just put that in the chat again? Maybe something.
I
I
sure
don't
will.
know.
I sure will. And if not, I will just tell everybody this. You can go on, you can even Google it, and it's North Central Texas SBDC on YouTube channel. Just say YouTube channel there. You can go on YouTube and look it up. But I'm going to go ahead and paste this again. Thank you for that challenge. Hopefully it will work. And I'm going to try that as what. No, I'm not going to do that while we're in the middle of recording. But at the same time, I will check it. And if not, those of you who take time to fill out that survey, we'll be happy to send you a new link. Okay. So thank you so much.
It comes up when I use a different one. I'm not sure what's going on, but the one that I have, it is coming up.
Okay. You want to send it there?
Sure.
Thank you. Just copy it and put it right there for everybody. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You guys have an amazing rest of the week and a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Really nice to see you, all of you. Bye-bye.
Good to see
Bye.
you. Come back.
I will.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Goodbye.